Okay, so thank you very much for joining us tonight for our webinar on developing a social media strategy. Made sure that you've downloaded the companion infographic that we pulled together. So my team and I pulled together this simple infographic. I couldn't really think of how to explain how you build a social media strategy and some of the things that you need to consider in pulling that strategy together. And I stumbled across an idea of doing an infographic. So it's a bit of an experiment for us. Let's talk a bit about social media. So initially, social media, it's been a rapidly growing medium that's I think has been really accelerated by the rise in smartphones and tablets. 70 or 80% of people accessing social media sites are now doing it on mobile devices. So it's increased rapidly, and that's been accelerated by having those devices available, but also been the ability to log into mobile internet, Wi-Fi, all that sort of stuff, and particularly high-speed internet and things like the NBN and those sort of devices are only going to help to make it better. I've got to say, I find social media probably poorly understood by most business owners, and I think largely that's because too many of us were raised in a different era, an era of broadcast advertising. So it's an era where we broadcast and we sent things out. So we were used to getting things via the radio or the television or the newspaper, and it's all one-way communication. Social media is a phenomenon of the last decade, and it's really more about dialogue between people than it is about than broadcast activities. But many of us still think about it as a broadcast activity, and I think that's a sort of it's a mistake. So let's just talk. The first thing you really need to have is make sure that you have a strategy. So let's be really clear. If you don't have a strategic plan for your business or your organization, then you really should. You need some sort of strategy for where you're going in the next 3 to 5 years. And that strategy needs to include some marketing elements, and you need to understand what it is that you're trying to do. In previous webinars, we've talked about promotion strategies for your business and those sorts of things, and this model here may be a bit familiar to you. I sort of focus on 3 key things in growing your business. You have to do some networking, meet with like-minded individuals and those sorts of things. You need to do some one-on-one activities, whether they're with centers of influence or buyers or other people. You need to do some one-on-one stuff. And then there's broadcast activities. Now, social media for me drops into that broadcast activity, although you could argue that it's an electronic networking media as well. But if you put into that broadcast media then you start to look at it in terms of how do we use it. Now, it's really important that the first step you do is to understand what are the goals, and what do you want to achieve with social media. So what are we trying to achieve in this process? Of engaging social media, because it's just a different mechanism for you to market and promote your business, and probably promote your business. Marketing, as we've discussed, is a highly sort of strategic activity. So that's the initial thing. You need to have a strategic plan. If you don't have a strategic plan for your business and you're not sure how to develop one, really happy to help you out. So give me a call and we can take that to another level for you. All right. So let's talk about the infographic here. So we've called this the social media funnel, and I guess it's just a simple way of laying out how we see the development of a social media strategy. And for me, it's about a couple of things. It's about making sure that you're coherent and that you're doing the activities that you need to do. So you need to have some I'm going to say. I've gone blank. Anyway, you need to be consistent right throughout the process. So I want to see consistency right throughout what you're doing, but consistency in delivery, but also in terms of message across social media. That's probably the most important thing. Now, I've already had some inquiry about this, so we're actually going to produce an online course to work you through the sort of 9 steps of this process, and and we'll be releasing that soon. I thought we would have it ready for you tonight, but the technology has just not worked out for me in that space. So I'll let you know about that, but it'll be a fairly cost-effective course, which will step you through the 9 steps of the process. We'll give you access to some of our templates and some of the tools that we use as a way of leveraging up the technology. Now, if we look at the model here, there are 2 channels the way I've envisaged it. On the left-hand side, we've got the primary channel, all right, and that's what most people do, although there's elements of it that they don't do particularly well. But that's what most people do when they mess around in social media, is what I call this sort of primary channel level. The turbo channel is the stuff that you can do to really lift your activity in this space and to get better results. And it's really about I guess turbocharging the other activity. Now, today's webinar, we're going to talk through the whole process as one, but you can split it out and just do the bits that you want to do. Depends a little bit on your resources and where we need to go. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Now let's focus on the first element, or the first action item, which I've called thought leadership strategy. So for me, one of the key drivers of social media, so social media is a content-rich environment. So we need to be thinking about a content strategy, if your content information strategy. And part of that is about saying, how do we want to be perceived as a thought leader in this business? For me, that's about how do you want to differentiate your business. So start thinking about, how do you want to differentiate your business, and how can you demonstrate that in a content-rich environment? And that's really about understanding a couple of things. Why? So remember, we've done some stuff around Simon Sinek's 3-circle model. So the golden circles. So it's about finding the purpose in your business and understanding what you want to do, and then using that then to create a thought leadership strategy for your business. So for me, your thought leadership strategy needs to be related to your competitive advantage. So what are we trying to do to differentiate our business in the marketplace? Then how can we build content that supports that initial thought, and start to build, I guess, a body of work or information that supports our strategy for thought leadership. Now, you need to think about, do we have any expertise or competitive advantage that we want to focus on? Who's the target market? So if who are we actually targeting? So really important that we don't do, and again, we've talked about this in previous webinars, that we don't do the upright with a pulse and a wallet as our target market. So you need to think carefully about who's your target market, what's the messages we want to get across to them that demonstrate our capacity to be thought leaders in this place. We're going to talk about platforms, and that's how you get the message out to people, and we'll spend some time talking about that. And then you need to have a plan. So I think about it as, if you go down from expertise to plan, why, who, how, and what are the key elements that you probably need to focus on. So first up, build that thought leadership strategy, understand how you want to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and then start to create some activity around that. So level 2 action level 2 in our social media funnel is all around content. Yeah, and really there's 2 areas. One's about creating the content. So how do we create the content? And the second one is the form of the content. What actually form is the content going to take for us in our business? Remember, this is part of the turbocharged model. So 2A is about content creation, and I think to remember here that creating custom-built content for you and your business is quite time-consuming. So there are different ways of doing this. You can do it yourself, and we write a reasonable amount of content of our own, as you've seen, but it does take time. You can contract it out to services, and we'll talk about some of those services in a minute. So sort of that, or you can borrow it from third-party sources. And I tend to do a bit of a combination of do-it-yourself and third-party sources. So if you've seen some of my posts on LinkedIn, you'll notice that I link to Fast Company magazine and Inc. magazine and Harvard Business Review and Huffington Post and different places that have good business articles. Well, I mix up a blend of content that we've written ourselves with stuff from other third parties. So, you need to work out what the blend is for you, because it's about resourcing. So what are you capable of doing, and what do you have the budget to do as well? If you don't have much budget, then you might have to do it all yourself, and you might want to borrow a lot of that from somebody else. In terms of the tools you might want to use in this space, then, we've got the contract sort of service model. Freelance.com, elance.com are where you get contractors. Fiverr is another one of those. Fiverr is sort of a lower end price thing. It's basically what people will do for $5. And my advice is you don't go anywhere near it during business hours, because there's all these really cool things that people will do for $5. And you'll just spend hours there going, kidding, I'll have one of those. So be really careful about that. If you want, we've stumbled across a dedicated service for building and writing articles, and it's called needanarticle.com. So if you go to needanarticle.com, and we'll have all these resources out to you as part of the follow-up package from this model. So needanarticle.com will actually write articles for you. Don't quote me, but it's about $20-25 for a 500-word article. You've obviously got to brief them what you want and do those sorts of things. Don't forget that you can also go to sort of, your industry groups and colleagues and suppliers and get articles and information from them that you can then post or create social media posts around. So sometimes they're a good source of ideas for you to either write your own product, own sort of output, or you can then possibly even just use theirs, as long as you're using appropriate referencing, so that you're not plagiarizing anybody else's stuff, but you may have their permission to do it with a link in it. And you'll see that we do that. Jim Parrier's on the course tonight. Jim does webinars and stuff for us, and other guys in my network, James Atkins and stuff. We regularly post blog articles from those guys. So don't be afraid to use colleagues and other people to assist you in this. There's a URL at the bottom here from Wide Reach Social Media. They're a firm that I've had a bit to do with here in Bundaberg. They've done some great work for some clients. They will basically help you develop your whole social media strategy, write articles for you, post them, and run your whole social media campaign for you. So if you want to outsource the lot, go and have a talk to Dan and Katrina at Wide Reach Social Media. Quite cost effective if you just don't have the time and the energy, but you have the focus on what you want to do. All right, so there's some of the tools we can do. In terms of content itself, so I guess that, there's a whole range of different content that you can use to create social media. So there's blog articles. So, we all should have a website, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but that website should have a blog on it. And the blog is where you start to create your thought leadership, and you start to post information and articles and those sorts of things. You can then build your blog articles into a newsletter publication, like we do. So most of you will be getting newsletters from us from either my business, Strategic Business Development, or through Horticulture the Next Generation. So you'll be getting those newsletters. They're often a rehash of the blog articles. We'll do videos. So often we do a short video summary of some of the blog articles, and we'll put that through, or we'll link videos, somebody else's great video, into our newsletters or into our posts and those sorts of things. Of course, we do webinars, and then something that I haven't been involved in but is quite a good medium is podcasts, and we're certainly looking at converting all our previous webinars and stuff into a podcast series, which means you can listen to us and watch us when you're in the car, at the gym, or walking the dog, or whatever. If your life is that terrible, you have to listen to me when you do that. So there's all sorts of different content there. I think the real rules here are reuse. So make so use the same content in different formats, in different forms. Repurpose it. So as I said, a great thing. Take your blog, convert it into a newsletter. Take a blog, can you do a short video of it? Create a webinar around it, create a podcast around all those sorts of things. There's a whole range of things. And then recycle is the other thing. So social media is a very transient medium, right? So it depends on the algorithms with, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever for how long your posts stay at the top of the view for other people and how quickly it cycles through. So not everybody on your list is going to see your posts. So if you've got popular posts, then my advice is recycle them and reuse them. And I've got a number of colleagues who recycle posts on their really popular posts on a regular basis and keep getting a lot of content and a lot of activity around those things. So, reuse, repurpose, and recycle your content. I think that's really important. Tools for creating content. The main ones that I use, obviously PowerPoint to create our webinars and those sorts of things, but you can use Prezi, which is a fairly new and innovative presentation tool. WordPress for your blogs. Camtasia and ScreenFlow are for video capture and editing and those sorts of things. So there's some of the tools you can use. So ScreenFlow is Mac only. Camtasia you can buy for both Mac and Windows based. There's a number of free resources as well in that space. So, use the tools. You may have to learn a few new skills. To be honest, the video editing techniques now are so simple, and once you've edited your first video, you'll find it's a piece of cake. They're very simple to use. Come with great videos, instructions, and those sorts of things. All right, so element 3, action 3 is our website. Really, a website is the anchor point for most of your content. Okay, so I'd encourage you to have a good quality website. If you don't have a good quality website, then there's not much of an excuse for that. We've written a recent blog article on how to create a cost-effective, simple website. So go to the blog at sbdbusiness.com.au and you'll find that. So, it can cost you. It can be virtually free through, maybe a couple $100 through to $1,000 to develop a fairly simple website. So cost shouldn't really be a barrier for you if you're in business, but it's where you need to house lots of things like blogs and videos and webinars and Twitter feeds and all that sort of stuff. And if you look at our site, that's exactly what we've done. So content that we've posted in other places. So often third-party content I won't post on my website, but it'll be there as part of Twitter feeds and LinkedIn feeds. But our own content that we've posted, and we've done other things, blogs and videos and webinars and all that sort of stuff, is all stored on our website as a central funnel for you, if you like. So your website is absolutely critical in this place. You can get by without one, but I really think that if you're going to build longevity into this and really have a focus on being a thought leader, then you need to build that website as part of that. The website's an excellent integral part of that. Okay, so let's talk about platforms. So level 4 here. So I guess the first thing is, at the top we talked about your thought leadership strategy. A whole heap of that is about understanding who your target market is. Now, everybody says Facebook, but to be honest, Facebook is not for everybody. So it's not about that. It's actually about picking the right social platform for your target market. Now, in my business, LinkedIn and Twitter are far more important to me in terms of business and generating business than Facebook is. I don't have any interaction through Facebook. I find most people that I'm looking to deal with go to Facebook for social reasons. They don't go there to track down a great business advisor. So I find that Facebook's a very limited use to me. I use it only because it's easy to post there in Hootsuite, but I find that LinkedIn and Twitter, YouTube are really important. We'll just go through some of the key ones. LinkedIn is very much around business to business activity. So, if your target market is primarily in business, then you should be thinking clearly about using LinkedIn. We'll talk about how you get some real leverage out of some of these things in a minute. But if your target market is very much around consumers, then Facebook is much better. So Facebook is far better for business to consumer interactions, whereas LinkedIn is much better for business to business. Twitter's an interesting one. I personally don't get Twitter. Just one of those paradigm things I struggle with. But it's interesting. I find that as a social media tool, it's really quite powerful. And I do monitor Twitter and follow it. And we find that 20 to 25% of the people who sign up for our webinars come from the Twitter feed. So obviously you're out there using it, and maybe somebody might explain to me why it works. Yeah, Kylie, I agree. I really don't get Twitter. Now, YouTube, absolutely critical to your business. If you're going to use video, given that most people are are integrating with social media on mobile devices and accessing the web on mobile devices, video is a fantastic mechanism to communicate with. You create long-term messages that you can post on YouTube. You can have them embedded into your website. People can watch them on their audio devices and their mobile devices, and you've got a lasting product that sits there. And that's one of the reasons. So these webinar programs that we post them back onto our website with a link. They're also on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, but we post them back onto our website as well. We find that somewhere between 2.5 and 7 times the number of people who actually physically log into the webinar watch the videos. So really important. I think you can underestimate the power of video. Now, we can talk a lot about video, and there's some great success stories with it, but it's a mechanism you need to think about. Google Plus, I've got to admit, I've sort of underestimated Google Plus in the past, and it's not something that I use, but recent evidence is starting to show that in the near future, that if you are not actively using Google Plus and getting activity through Google Plus, so you need to actually participate in the Google Plus network, that your posts will start to fall down the search engine rankings as Google has changed their algorithm. Now, you need to remember that both Google Plus and YouTube are owned by Google, so video and Google Plus posts will actually help with search engines because Google rates them as higher sources than other things. There are a range of other social platforms, Pinterest, Snapchat, all these others. So if you've got a younger audience, then Snapchat can work for you. If your target market is women in their sort of 25 to 40 age bracket, then Pinterest is one of the emerging social platforms in that space. So worth thinking about your platform. So what platforms can you service, though, is the other thing. So I don't think there's much point in posting to everything if you're not going to go and participate in those social platforms, as we're going to talk about in a minute. And so you're going to have to pick and choose the ones where the majority of your target market is hanging out. Okay, so the next element then is storage and distribution. So sort of fits with the social platforms thing in that you're going to have all this content you're going to create of your own. You need to have somewhere to store it and to distribute it. Now, I've included bulk mail campaigns in there, as sometimes that's what you need to do to get people to participate in some of your social media and other strategies. So that's sort of there. You need to think about video hosting as well. So if you're going to put video content out, you've got to host it somewhere where you can host it and distribute it. So that's fairly important. You might need to think about webinars and those sorts of things if you're going to deliver some of this content via this mechanism, and then podcasts. So it's all related to the type of type of content that we talked about in actual up in 2B, as to where you're going to store it and where you're going to put it, so that then you can work out how you're going to promote it. All right, some of the tools you might want to use, for email and those sorts of campaigns, and running a whole heap of social media, an fully integrated e-marketing program. HubSpot is a brilliant resource. It's probably a bit too expensive for some businesses, but it's a fantastic resource, fully integrated from web hosting all the way through to social media integration. Very powerful. We use Zoho, which is an integrated CRM and campaign management tool for doing a lot of stuff and staying on top of things. You'll find that the pages you go through to click on to register for our webinars and stuff, that's all through lead pages. They're really powerful because they are tailored and crafted to help improve conversion rates, so to get most people clicking through, and give you pretty good stats on that stuff. If you're actually involved in email distribution, then MailChimp and Aweber are probably the two of the bigger services in that space, and we've used MailChimp quite extensively in the past. And then podcasts, you got to look at iTunes. Video, you either go for the free version with YouTube, or you go up a notch in terms of quality and you pay for a service through Vimeo. They're probably the two major ones. And then for delivering webinars, we use GoToWebinar, which is an all-encompassing program that looks at booking and follow-ups and emails and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of the stuff you see coming from us comes direct from GoToWebinar and is integrated into that process. Okay, so that's that's about platforms and storage. We can talk now about, and I think we're getting down to, so prior to this, it's all been a little bit around setting up and getting ready and doing things, but now we're actually starting to talk about what do you actually do in social media. All right, so if you want to start to build your strategy and your activity in social media, two things you need to do. You need to build awareness and you need to build credibility. Okay, and I guess the couple of things to consider. So let's talk about building awareness. So the first thing we need to do, make sure that we do, is we actually build a strong profile. So too many people, I spend more time on LinkedIn than anywhere else. I see lots of people put together a pretty ordinary profile on LinkedIn. If you think about it as an online CV or an online brochure for you and or your business, and we'll talk about a rookie mistake in a second, but if you think about it like that, you need to put the time into building a good profile. And you'll be surprised how many people will look at your LinkedIn profile and your website before they pick up the phone to call you around business of any sort. So it's more important than you think. Most people give it lip service. My advice to you is put a bit of time and effort into it. And with the right keyword searches and keyword density and things, we'll talk about a bit about leverage in a minute. You can actually make sure you also rank fairly highly when people search for different types of businesses and stuff on or services or products on LinkedIn or Facebook or other things. So that's worth thinking about. Rookie mistake is too many people sign up to, I've seen people sign up to Facebook, but particularly to LinkedIn. They sign up as their company or a product. They'll sign up as Fred's Earth Moving instead of signing up as Fred. Because remember, social media is about a personal connection, right? So it's about a dialogue, and it's not business to business, it's person to person. So you need to sign up as an individual and then create business pages either at Facebook or LinkedIn or or Twitter or whatever you need to do. So make sure you're signing up as a person, because it's all about personal contact. Really important. Okay, so spend the time to build a good profile. Do those sorts of things. When you first get on, build your profile and start following other people and linking to other people and connecting with other people. That's pretty important, but follow them. The simplest thing to do, say with Twitter, is just to follow. Share their stuff, like their stuff, do those sort of things. So they're the simple things that are really easy to do and start to build awareness of you and your business. So doing some of those things, just they're fairly passive if you like, liking and following and all that sort of stuff, just clicking on a button, maybe sharing some of their content if you retweet through Twitter and those sorts of things. So it depends on the social media platform that you use, but make sure that you're actually driving some of this stuff. All right, we're going a bit over schedule, a bit over time. I'm sorry, so I'll push on as best I can. I guess the second part of that is then you've got to build credibility. And the thing here is I find that people just don't take the time here. And this is where most people need to put their effort in social media. And it's about participating in discussions. It's about mentioning other people and the good comments that they've made. It's about commenting on their posts and doing other things. And then it's about posting your own content. And posting your own content there is that part of the turbocharge thing, because that's about you creating that thought leadership by putting up your own content, your own posts, those sorts of things. So, make sure you participate. It's a participatory process. It's social media is what it's called. It's not about broadcasting your message out there. It's actually about participating and getting people into it. So, start discussions, start groups, start all sorts of things and get involved. And you just have to put the time into it. Okay, so the turbocharge part of this is really posting your own content. Yeah, so to give you some real credibility in the marketplace. In terms of tools to help you at this space, most of the apps have some sort of most of the platforms have their own app, so they'll have LinkedIn has actually I prefer to use the LinkedIn app, but LinkedIn has its own app and all those sorts of things. Facebook, Twitter, all those guys have things. The tool I use probably the most for all this stuff is Hootsuite. Yeah, so Hootsuite.com. It's a really simple web-based social media management tool. It allows you to do multiple posts to multiple sites, so you can do posts to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and different groups and stuff, all from Twitter. You can also monitor all from Twitter, all from Hootsuite. You can also monitor other people's posts and activity using it. It's a really powerful tool. It's free to a certain level, and then it's I think the premium version is very cost effective anyhow, so well worth having a look at. It's one of the tools I probably couldn't do without, so have a look at Hootsuite if you're at all interested in social media. Okay, so pushing on, and I guess we get into the real meat of it here. Level 6 or action level 6 for me is around connecting with people. And you really need to do that connection thing. So you need to build, not only put your own profile up, you need to go invite other people to connect with you. You need to accept their connections. You need to message them directly, all that sort of stuff to start to build that connection on those relationships. Really, really important. I guess the challenge here is to make sure that you're balancing quality and quantity. So, when you're connecting with people, do you connect with every man and or her dog? No. Every man, woman, and their dogs? No. I'd be a little bit selective. So, I'm very wary of connecting with people from overseas markets and stuff that are in areas where I'm assuming they're just contacting me to get access to my network and other things. So I'm wary about connecting with some of those people. But if there's a general business connection, then I will join up to them. And remember, connection's about, it's not necessarily who you know, it's who everybody else knows and who's in their network. So that's why lots of people are interested in connecting with you. Be a little bit discerning about it, but it's also a numbers game. So, I would encourage you to connect and build an online, an online community that then you participate in. So, just connecting with people without doing this 2 steps above and building awareness and building credibility, I think is a little bit of a waste of time, because otherwise, you just look there. Similarly, having an account on any of these things and not connecting with anybody, having 2 connections on it, fair waste of time as well. So, you've got to get out there and participate. So it's all about participation and connection. Really important. And, when people connect with me, then I will often send them a message. Depends whether I know them well or not. But if they're strangers, then often I will connect with them and send them a message saying, "Hey, thanks for connecting with me. Look, you might be interested in webinar programs and other things that we provide free through our website. Please go along, join up to the newsletter, do those sort of things." So invite people to those things. I get a pretty good response rate from that, and I don't get anybody coming back saying, "How dare you contact me?" I mean, they've just connected with you, so sending them a direct message to say thank you is a fairly polite thing, and a number of people do it to me as well. All right, so level 7 then is probably an area where most businesses fail to capitalize on, and I'll call this, it's this call to action. So we do all the hard work of connecting with people, touching base with them, building a community of interest, creating this thought leadership stuff, and then we fail to do the call to action. We fail to engage them in some sort of sales process. Yeah, and the good operators that I've seen in social media are people who build a relationship, provide some value, and then start to ask people, "Hey, if you find that interesting, then you may want to participate in our services or do other things." Now, it's about having a call to action that's relevant for you and your business. And prior to the webinar, I had some questions about how do you use social media. John asked me a question that how do I actually, in a seasonal business, where say a horticultural business, a seasonal business, how do I use social media effectively? Well, my strategy would be to work through and build awareness and thought leadership and do all the things and build a network of people around around your business. So do that during the year, but then leading up to whenever your product comes into season, or if it's a seasonal product, I would then start a program of direct contact with people. Okay, so I would then start emailing them or messaging them, and maybe even phoning them if you've got those sorts of details. But certainly start an email and direct email and messaging campaign through that. Now, some of them have CRM functions. So LinkedIn, you can actually download all your contacts into Outlook or whatever system you use, or into your mail programs, and you can actually send out mailings to people and do things. You can actually mail directly from LinkedIn in blocks of about 20 or 25. So if you carve your mailing list up into groups of 20 or 25, you can actually just mail out to them in selective mailings. So, my strategy would be to start to build a community of thought, and then start to communicate directly with those people, letting them know you have product available, when it's coming up, start in advance, so that you're starting to build some interest in what you do. So really important. Most people think that just connecting with people, somehow they're magically going to pick up the email and talk to you. You'll get a little bit of that, but you really need to start communicating directly with people, and maybe it's about providing them with some tailored information or something special to them. Yeah. A question here, Kylie. Facebook has a call to action option on business pages. How do you think this could be effectively used? So the call to action option on business pages is it's paid advertising, really. So that can work really well. So I sort of lump that into that direct contact thing, if you like, or expanding your market. But it's an advertising campaign. It's normally on a pay-per-click basis. Can be really quite cost-effective if you use it well. But I wouldn't be doing it just for every post you put out. So I'd be doing it when you've got something special that you really want to take out to a wider market. The good thing about those call to action options is that you can tailor who the message is delivered to quite closely. So you can actually use the demographic information. And again, back to the first level, who's your target market? Really important you have a clear vision of who that avatar is in your business, so you can build your marketing campaign around things that they're interested in. Use the right language and the right things to contact them, so you can build your advertising campaign around that. But like most things, advertising is a difficult thing to get right, and it's a bit about trial and error. But you can actually drip feed that out, test it on a smaller number, and then do a whole heap of other things you test it, and then you can say, well, what sort of feedback are we getting on different messages, and then roll it out into a much more expensive campaign. So too many people I see roll out one big advertising campaign and go, oh, that didn't work, and never do it again, instead of rolling out a small one, changing it, testing it, and working out what works, and then roll it out. Okay. Thanks, Kylie. I hope that answered your question. So call to action, pretty important. Most people just don't do it. So if you're going to do anything in social media, make sure you actually get to the point where you're actually starting to contact people directly, and you're starting to ask them to do business with you. My experience is that if people are on these social media things, platforms, they are far more open to being approached from a business point of view than they would be if you met them at a networking event or a barbecue or somewhere else. Not so much on Facebook, but certainly on LinkedIn, those sorts of platforms, Twitter. People are quite almost expect you to ask them for business in some way. So don't be shy. Now, if you're doing all the things in the previous 7 layers, then you can start to get some leverage. All right, and it's about leveraging your previous activity. And a couple of things here. Think about frequency. So how often are you going to post? Yeah. Now, the algorithms that Facebook and LinkedIn and most of the platforms use, the more frequently you post, the more views you get, the higher you stay in the rankings, the longer your stuff stays in the forefront, and then the more hits that you get, the longer it stays there. So it's a self-feeding system. So frequency is really important. Some of the experts are saying, you should be sending something on the hour every hour. I don't sort of do that, but I normally try and get a post out there on a daily basis. And you'd be surprised if you look at the statistics how just even posting, once, maybe twice a day on different things will actually lift the views and the number of people that see your thing. So frequency is really important. And don't forget, you think you're spamming people, but don't forget most people aren't on there 24/7. So a lot of people won't even see a couple of your of your posts. The other thing is use keywords. These are particularly important in your profiles so that you rank really well in terms of searching, but equally as important in some of your posts, in your blog articles and your videos. So YouTube has quite an extensive keyword area. So use keywords there because it helps with search engine optimization, with searching, and so you're appearing higher in Google searches and those sorts of things. So keywords really important, just as important in social media as they are in other forms of electronic media. Hashtags are, I guess, another form of keywords, but really use these in hashtags are, we do hashtag horticulture or hashtag business or something. There are people that will search for those hashtags, so use those. Particularly important in Twitter and Google Plus that you use hashtags. And if you're not using hashtags, then your post won't be nearly as well viewed as other posts. Connections, so in different groups there's different ways of doing this, but mentioning people and connecting to them and those sorts of things will actually help you get leverage. So people like to be seen, and you get far higher results, and you perform better in algorithms if you're actually connecting with other people and doing those sort of things as well. So it's an important part of the activity part of things. Links, make sure you're putting links back to your website. That's where you can have links to good quality content and stuff on your website. So make sure you include web links in lots of what you do so that people can track you down in other ways. And lastly, don't forget those call to action, because they're the things that are going to feed into your sales funnel. And I'm not going to talk much about the sales funnel, but if we're doing the calls to action and the social media program right, we should have things that start to drop into our sales funnel, where we can then work our normal sales process to convert those into business for our business. All right. So I've got a question here. Do you have any suggestions for connections where there are contacts who do not have social media? I mean, email is still the primary, it's still the most popular and most successful form of communication, but it's starting to dwindle away. So if you're actually trying to contact the younger generation, then email is not nearly as important as some of these other platforms for contacting them. But if you're contacting cranky old fellas like me, then email is still one of the major mechanisms for contacting. So if they're not on social media and that sort of stuff, you need to sort of use email. So as I said, at the start, you need to have the three circles of networking and one-on-ones and broadcast activity. Broadcast activity needs to include things like email and other forms of advertising that complement your social media. So social media, I don't believe, is a mechanism just by itself. It needs to complement other things that you do. I hope that's helped. Interesting comment from John, question from John. With LinkedIn, is it better to message through LinkedIn rather than using their general email address? It will depend on the person a bit. If they're really active on LinkedIn, then yes, I find that you are actually better to go through LinkedIn and contact them, because it's their sort of primary function. Most people, though, so for some reasons it doesn't matter. If I don't know them particularly well, then I will go through LinkedIn to contact them, because it's like a common medium we have. If I just sort of email them directly, then it sort of comes a bit out of the blue. If I come via LinkedIn, then it's almost like I'm using our connection on the platform to contact them. So I don't think there's any hard and fast rules on it. I don't actually look at the messages on LinkedIn because they all come into my email system with notifications from LinkedIn anyhow. So I look at the notifications and then click back and go back in via LinkedIn to do them. But yeah, so I do a fair bit of communication with people through LinkedIn itself, through the platform itself. All right. What's the silver bullet to contact members in an industry organisation and get them to act? I don't know if I have a silver bullet for that, Trevor. If it was, I think we'd all be driving Maseratis and having a great time if it was that easy. I don't believe it's a silver bullet. I think the silver bullet is you need to contact people in a variety of different media. So too often I find industry organisations and groups are contacting people via one mechanism. We do it via email, or we do it via some other mechanism, and that's the only thing we do. Or we have a printed newsletter, or we do have something, and we don't realise that. But we're not accepting that people will absorb information from us in a variety of different ways. So they'll use different media. So I'd be encouraging you to use a range of different media, from email to social media posts to, you may have a discussion group and that sort of stuff. So if I look at the Horticulture, the Next Generation program, we as you probably you may know, we reproduce content through the website. We will post it on social media through a dedicated group on LinkedIn. We post to social media pages, and we post through Twitter, and we send email newsletters out to people, and we use video for some of those messages as well. And we find, across all those groups, that we get some people absorb and take in information in different formats. So I think you've got to have a blended model rather than a silver bullet model. Hope that helps. All right, so let's talk about the model. So that's our overall model with the sort of tools down the side. Remember we talked about, there's a primary channel and a turbo channel. So if you just want to, you can just whip down the primary channel there. Understand what your thought leadership strategy is. Make sure you've got a website and you're starting to accumulate content on your website. At least if you've got a website for somewhere to go to refer them to once you have some contact with them, so they can check you out in a bit more detail. Work out what social media platforms that you're actually going to participate in, where your target market lies, and that's really important. So don't try and do them all. Just go to the ones where you're going to have the biggest return on investment. Make sure you're doing the activities around building awareness and building credibility. Connecting is really important, but build awareness, build credibility by participating. So social media by nature is a social activity. You need to be part of that process. Okay, so you need to participate, and it means you've got to put 20 minutes a day aside to go on and click on various posts in Facebook and social and LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever you need to do. And that's why you can't do too many platforms, I guess, is the other reason. But if you need to do that to follow what's going on, then you need to do it. And I guess it's about committing some of the time to it. Make sure you're connecting with people and building a network so that you can promote your activities to it. Don't leave out the basic sales things of call to action, so that we can start to fill people in our sales funnel. So we start to pour people into that sales funnel, we can convert that into business for you. The turbo channel is then if you want to take it up another notch and I guess leverage your thought leadership strategy by creating your own content and posting that. Okay, so for me it's all about, if you really want to leverage it and you really want to be seen as a thought leader, you've got to create your own content. You've got to be seen as a leader in your chosen field, and start to build some content around that. Okay, so they're the sort of channels. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to pull together a course for this. So we'll pull together a 10-module course. Be able to have 24/7 access to that. We'll build in links to all the resources and things we've talked about, but also some into sort of plans and templates and those sort of things that we've built basically for most levels of the program to give you some structure in how you pull this together. We'll be sending you out some more information, but in the long term, you'll be able to register for the course or get more info at the URL at the bottom of the page there. But trust me, we'll be in contact. All right. Now, our next webinar is going to be on attracting and retaining a quality team. So one of the big challenges that I see going forward for most businesses is their ability to attract and retain quality people. And it's a function of a number of different elements, and we're going to talk through those in our next webinar. So that'll be on the 24th of June, 3 weeks' time, same bat channel. So great to have you along for that one if you'd like to be there. And be part of that process. Okay, we're going to wrap up. I'm sorry I've gone for a lot longer than I thought. It was a bigger topic than even I thought we'd get through. So thank you for that. If you've got any other questions, please ask them now. Happy to do that. If not, then we'll probably see you at another webinar in the future. Of course, if we can help you in your business, grow your business and take it to another level, then I'm really happy to have a chat with you about that. Please just contact me and we can have a no obligation chat about whether we can be of any real help to you. Anyway, thanks very much. Any questions, just please type them into the question area. But thanks again for your participation.